Hi everyone! I know you love the movie Hercules. I do too, to tell you the truth. In order to show it to you, however, we need to talk about some of the big differences between Disney's version of the story and the ancient Greeks' version of it. First, the Greek name for Hercules was Heracles, and we'll talk about why that's so ironic in a few minutes. He's not a god or a mortal, but a class in between the two called a demigod. Disney was right that being a demigod put Hercules in a funny position. He had more skills than your average mortal, but still he wasn't a god either. In fact, his mother was a normal woman named Alcmene. Alcmene loved her husband very much, and that was just one of the many attributes that caught the eye of Zeus, who was the king of the Olympian gods. As a matter of fact, she was such a loyal wife to her husband Amphitryon, who had been away with the Greek army, that Zeus knew he would not be able to seduce her by any normal means. So he disguised himself as her husband. When Alcmene saw him, after he'd been away for so long, they had a very heartfelt reunion. When they were done reuniting, Zeus left, and the real Amphitryon came home. Amphitryon was a bit confused by his wife's lack of surprise at his return, but he came in, he was very happy to see her, and Alcmene, they say, was all too happy to have two reunions with her husband. She became pregnant with twins. One was the child of Zeus, the other was the child of her mortal husband, Amphitryon. Their names were Heracles, which means glory of Hera, and Iphicles, which means glory of Iphis. I'm not sure which Iphis they meant. There are a lot of them. So anyway, Heracles was Zeus's son. He and his twin brother Iphicles were almost not born at all. When Hera found out that Zeus had been seeing another woman again, she tricked him into promising that a child born on a particular night, the night Heracles was due, would be a great king. Then she sent Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, to sit crisscross applesauce, in other words, legs crossed, outside Alcmena's door with her fingers crossed and her clothes tied in knots. This was supposed to keep Alcmena from being able to give birth at all. Meanwhile, she made Nisipe, who was pregnant with a son who would be named Eurystheus, give birth early. As a matter of fact, she really didn't want Alcmene giving birth at all, and Alcmene wouldn't have, except for the trickery of a nymph named Galanthus, who felt sorry for Alcmene, and burst in on Eileithyia, yelling that Alcmene had given birth, and the boy was beautiful, and the mama was healthy. Eileithyia was so surprised that she jumped up and uncrossed her fingers. That broke the spell that she'd been weaving, long enough for Alcmene to give birth. Hera was so mad that she turned Galanthus into a weasel for interfering. Well, Alcmene's troubles weren't enough to satisfy Hera, however. She set about attacking Heracles after his birth, and sent two serpents to kill him when he was a sleeping little baby in his cradle. Well, not his cradle. He was asleep with his brother in Amphitryon's shield. And when the snakes came, Hercules woke up and strangled them both, and went back to sleep. Well, Hercules grew to be a strong young man, and he married a lovely woman named Megara, with whom he had 2 children. Still bent on revenge for Zeus's infidelity, Hera sent a fit of rage unto Heracles. Under its influence, he killed Megara and their children. Heracles was distraught. He prayed to Apollo for absolution from his awful deeds, for killing one's own blood relatives was a crime particularly detested in the ancient world. He went all the way to Apollo's temple at Delphi. There the oracle of Apollo told him that he would have to complete 10 labors under the oversight of his relative Eurystheus of Mycenae. Yes, the very same baby whose birth had been accelerated by Hera. That 10 turned to 12 when Eurystheus rejected 2 of the labors, one because Heracles had help and the other because Heracles was paid for his work. But we'll learn more about the labors later. Suffice it to say that the first 6 are local legends, meaning that their different cities claim to fame and the reason that people would book trips there. Kind of food for the tourist industry. The second 6 labors are symbolic victories over death, and those are the means by which Heracles could earn his place among the gods. Oh, let's see here. There are more stories about Heracles, and you can visit this website at the top of the page. And there's a nice picture of Heracles on a black figure on Lekuthos. You always see him wearing the lion skin from the first of his labors. So, coming back to the story, Hercules completed the 12 labors. Having atoned for his sin, he was able to find love again. He fell madly in love with the Princess Deianira of Calydon, and they planned to get married. But she was so beautiful that many men and many centaurs all wanted to marry her. The last was a centaur named Nessus, who actually tried to carry her off. When Heracles attacked and killed Nessus to rescue her, Nessus used his last breaths to tell Deianira that his blood was a love potion that would ensure that Heracles would never be unfaithful to him. Believing him, Deianira took some of his blood and smeared it on Heracles' shirt. When Heracles went to put it on, it burned him horribly, and it burned him even more when he tried to take it off. In his pain, he asked his friends to build a funeral pyre on Mount Oita. After his friends had built it, he climbed it and asked them to light it afire, and hoped that the gods would allow him death and release from the torture of this shirt. Horrified by what she had accidentally done, Deianira killed herself too. Looking down from Mount Olympus, the gods decided that Heracles had simply suffered enough. Even Hera put aside her anger. Athena took him in her chariot from the pyre to Mount Olympus, where he married Zeus and Hera's daughter Hebe, the cupbearer of the gods and goddess of forgiveness. And he lived untroubled from that day forward among the gods on Mount Olympus. Other items of note in the Disney movie? Well, there are 9 muses, not 5. There's only one Pegasus. He was born when Perseus severed Medusa's head. The underworld wasn't a horrible place, but both heaven and hell the way we think of them today. And Hades wasn't a bad guy, other than that incident where he kidnapped his wife. Ares, the god of war, was the one accompanied by fear, panic, and pain. Hope you enjoyed finding out more about Heracles. Ask me if you have questions.